Hi, everybody. We're the
What?
Skeleton Crew.
Hello.
We're answering questions again. Now, the month is currently January, and the month of the Q&As is September. It's funny the way that works.
It's closer.
Isn't nature amazing? It's closer than it has been in the past at some times. So
Hey,
that's fine.
we are recording this in a cold month, and September is kind of, sort of, maybe in some places, the start of cold times.
Yes.
Brother,
Yes,
September ends at like 80 degrees. What are you talking about?
Don't wake me up about it.
Did you know that song's actually about quite a somber topic?
Anyway, we're going to answer some questions. So Dalton is the question meister, and so we're gonna leave it with Dalton. But before that happens, just a couple reminders, right? If you want to submit questions to these videos and get your question answered approximately half a year after you ask it, you're more than welcome to. And the only thing we ask is that you pay us money every month while we don't answer them.
Doing it this way, you like it, actually. It's a fun surprise because you'll forget what
you'll never know.
They age like a fine wine. So yeah, if you want to support the Skeleton Crew and try to help us justify taking even more time out of our schedules so that we will actually get to questions in a timely manner, you can do so on Patreon. You can also like this video and comment on it so that we get viewers who may also become new patrons. How does that sound to everybody? Alex, are you okay? Dalton, why don't you lead into the question asking part of the Q&A video?
Well, why don't I? So, welcome again to our patron Q&A. Thank you to everyone who sent in questions for the September Q&A. We're going to get down to it. The first one comes to us from the man with no name, who asks, if every member of the crew had to be a single vertebra on the human spinal column, which vertebra would you be? And we're going to go in the order that we've written them down. So I'll start. And I would be T2, the second thoracic vertebra, because Judgment Day.
That's beautiful, Dalton.
Excellent answer, Dalton. I'm gonna ask. Can I cheat and just say the sacrum? I know it is technically separate, but like the sacrum, I am solid, hard to break, and actually 5 smaller beings fused into one.
You should get that looked at. The atlas is my favorite vertebra, and so that's the one I would like to be. It's C1, the first vertebra. We did not save the best for last. We actually made the best one precisely first, and it's cool. It's just a ring. It's got no vertebral body. There's a bunch of blood vessels near it, and if you go to a chiropractor, it's possible those blood vessels will catch those blood vessels in between your atlas and your skull and lacerate them, and then you die.
I wrote down the axis, which is the second vertebra, because at least, I guess I don't remember exactly how it looks in people, but at least in most animals I find it's very cool looking, because it's like a normal vertebra, but a little extra. In mosasaurs, it's got the spine becomes like this big, like hatchet shape kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Like they're very cool. I like them. And very important.
It is cool
Is it
looking.
my turn?
It's
your turn,
on these. I didn't write anything down, but that's fine.
So you're last on every question.
Yep.
Okay, then go Dalton.
No,
I already
Dalton
went
first.
Oh, he said T2, like the Terminator, like the Toyminator. Well, I was also going to say the axis, because I also think it looks cool and long. And unlike the atlas, which, fish have those. The axis is when you come out onto land. So, why be first if you can be better? Good question. It was different. We hadn't been asked that before.
No, I was going to jokingly say that is not a question I've ever been asked in my life.
No, that was a fun one.
I thought that this would kind of dovetail into viewer. James has already called dibs on my L2 vertebra when I die.
I have.
So
why did I want your L2 in particular?
Why?
Again?
I don't know. We were at the zoo. We were at the Bronx Zoo. And I forget.
A lot of people go to the Bronx Zoo. I don't understand how this relates.
I think that this was this was just like we were sitting down having like lunch at the Bronx Zoo, And I think that you were telling the story about what early
Gideon Mantell's spine with Richard Owen.
Yes.
Richard Owen in like the most supervillain move of any paleontologist, getting his rival's spine as a specimen and keeping it on his desk.
Yes, yeah. And then you said like, and then I made some sort of joke about it, and you said like, Scott, you're not my rival, you're my friend, so I will just take your L2.
I think, I think that's exactly what happens.
Lamau.
Yeah. I'm very magnanimous in that way.
All right. Well, our next question, for our next question, we'll need to discuss snow blindness in cats. No, I'm kidding.
What?
That's just another Talladega Nights joke.
Oh, right.
Our next question comes to us from Life Finds a Way, who asks if each member of the crew had to make the switch to field biology, zoology as an area of study, which branch would they choose? Herpetology, mammalogy, ornithology, etc. For me, it would definitely be herpetology. I just really like reptiles. Like, don't get me wrong, I like all living animals, and I like to see them. They're all cool, but I like reptiles the most.
You also quite like dead animals, hence your field of study.
Well, yes.
I also really like herpetology, and actually, I job shadowed in the herpetology prep lab at Michigan back in the day. I helped prep my pet corn snake and African fat-tailed gecko for accession when they passed away. And actually, the fat-tailed gecko ended up being the only adult specimen that they had in the collection. They had like
That's
a cleared
really
and stained.
cool.
Yeah, right? Like, and Michigan has a huge fluid collection. So it was actually like, it was kind of a surprise to all of us that an animal that was pretty common in the pet trade, they only had a cleared and stained hatchling. So yeah, they were looking through, and I believe it's I believe its binomial is Hemithecanox caudacinctus, and they looked up, and it was just like that was all they had. So now I know of that there are at least two, and one of them is a little toe tag that says donated from the pet trade by Scott Johnston, named Slayer.
Poor Slayer.
How about that?
Yeah.
Alex,
Alex, you were making weird faces when I was saying that Michigan had a big fluid collection.
I don't want to. It was just going to be slander of the region.
All right. Well, I'll break ranks a little bit. I'd probably be a mammologist, honestly. The kinds of evolutionary questions that I've asked with dinosaurs, I think, are things that have arisen from the fact that I had a background in, like, I shouldn't say a background in, but I had worked closely with a paleomammologist who did a lot of, like, integrative work on, like, modern animals, using them to contextualize the fossil record. And so I think if I had not become a paleontologist, I may have become like a neontological mammal specialist working on questions of like variation and ontogeny and growth and stuff. That's probably what I would have done. I love reptiles, but there's something about being in mammal collections that I've always found very cool. And I've got research coming out soon on modern mammals as well, so I guess we actually know that's the answer.
There's a chance I would also be a herpetologist because reptiles, obviously, but the more likely thing would actually probably be horticulture or botany, like, because that is something that I like. And a big part of the reason I'm in paleo to begin with is I don't have to kill my specimens; they're already dead, and that's something that like I don't. It's part of the reason I'm not in neontology. Like I did a little bit of research on gecko embryos as an undergrad, but they're different. They're embryos, like, so it's not as, hard to euthanize them as it is for animals that are not embryos. So I don't really think I would actually be able to handle that part of it. So I think I'd probably wind up in botany.
Okay. Alex.
And what will shock absolutely no one. Marine biology. For the only secrets comparable to the secrets held by time are the secrets held by the ocean.
He just wants to hang out with James Cameron.
Well, I mean, that would be a perk, yeah. Would you not want, like, is that supposed to be a dig?
No, not at all.
Okay, good. We could make the ocean seas our bed.
Sure.
Or make the ocean caves. It's from the lighthouse.
I don't remember that.
I forgot that line.
It's the toast. Should pale death with... Never mind.
Alex, most people don't have the memory
Lighthouse
that you do, in particular for the
chapter and
lighthouse.
verse.
All right. You don't like remember a lot of lines from your favorite movie? That's so weird.
Not really.
Alex, is that your favorite movie? Yeah? Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Our next question comes to us from Willem Dafoe, who asks, did you like that movie I was in, The Lighthouse? No.
Yes. Yes.
Will you admit you're fond of me lobster?
Come to my house.
Our next question comes to us from Ryan Wants to Die, who asks, why is there no Middle Cretaceous? And are there efforts to change that? And I think probably one person could take this. No one has volunteered, but I think...
Well, Dalton, why don't you take it if you think one person should take it?
It looks like Alex was volunteering.
I think Alex should take it because I don't have a good answer.
Oh, yeah. To be clear, I don't know why, and that's what I'm trying to make you do.
Biden blast. Middle Cretaceous blast. The Middle Cretaceous... the Middle Cretaceous is kind of... So there's a number of reasons. I wouldn't say... There's not really a concerted effort to make the Middle Cretaceous a real thing. I know many paleontologists share like their opinion that it would be helpful if it was something we kind of discussed as its own distinct unit of time. I personally kind of recognize it when I'm talking about some groups. And that kind of what I mean by that is it's a period in which there doesn't appear to be change in a lot of groups, but it's like there's some stuff happening in dinosaurs.
Right.
So to dinosaur workers, there's some interesting stuff happening. Now, some people might argue that it is the height of dinosaur-brained hubris to say something interesting is happening to my study group, like for this period, and that thus we should separate it into its own like subcategory. But
isn't that also when the terrestrial revolution happens?
Well, I mean, that's the transition period, but I'll let Alex finish and then I'll kind of chime in.
Okay.
Sort of. It's... How to say this in a
Sorry for derailing.
No, it's fine. I'm just trying to like... I don't want to make an argument for that, like, hey, why does every other period in the Mesozoic get an early, middle, and late, but the Cretaceous doesn't? And that just ends up with the early and late Cretaceous being like insanely long. But that is what I'm going to say. It seems a little silly to me.
I agree.
Yeah.
That's it. If you want to talk about the terrestrial revolution, go for it.
Well, I mean, like,
for it.
Important stuff does happen in the Middle Cretaceous, like in the middle part of the Cretaceous period.
Yeah.
But it's not a particularly long time. And I think the perception, like, that is certainly a very important episode in dinosaur evolution. I don't really know how much it correlates to like mammals or squamates, but I imagine something's going on.
It's important.
It's important.
It's certainly important for squamates, and I think it's probably important for mammals too.
So that being the case, if you've got a short period of time where a lot happens, I don't know if the right impulse is to necessarily make that a period in its own right. If this is like a 5 to 10 million year like pulse of evolutionary like novelty, which it kind of seems to be, maybe it's like centered at about 100 million years ago. By the time you hit like 83 million years ago, you have established like late Cretaceous ecosystems. And there's a huge gap in the fossil record throughout like at least most of North America, like in that period of time where we might also have that. So it's possible that by 90 million years ago, you've got like ceratopsians and hadrosaurs and tyrannosaurids and all of that. So I think there might be some pushback from like the broader geological community, because you're basically saying there's a really interesting small window of time at the boundary between the early and the late Cretaceous. Why does that need to be formally recognized as the Middle Cretaceous?
Babe, so as someone with zero geology background, like aren't these stages defined by geological characters, for lack of a better term, or like this is like, I guess the thing that I'm thinking about is like, my understanding, not knowing, is that these stages are mostly defined by geological things or maybe invertebrate things. I didn't think like, but even then, I didn't think that the animals had any bearing on what the geologic stages were called. So like, why would I'm just kind of agreeing, although I might be wrong about the reasoning that like, yeah, okay, dinosaurs are evolving at this point in time. That doesn't mean that the geologic record needs to be named to reflect that, because it's a separate line of data. Or
Well, and
it's a separate study altogether.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the faunal changes in the fossil record, like kind of writ large, have been used to try to define like Earth, like to some degree as evidence for where you should draw some sort of distinction.
Yeah, they have.
Yeah.
And they continue to be.
I think Alex's answer may have been like like jokingly overstated and a little bit flippant, but that's like, it was a joke. But it's not so much that dinosaur workers are saying like, there's an interesting thing with dinosaurs here, we have to recognize this time. But I think it's that like dinosaur workers focus a lot on the middle part of the Cretaceous, and so we think of it like, this is a really interesting period in Earth history, we should recognize it as such. But like, I think it's perfectly fine to just write mid-Cretaceous in like in lowercase, for lack of a better term. Like, it doesn't need to be a formally named unit to talk about the middle part of the Cretaceous. Yeah. Sorry, Dalton, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think it would be helpful if it were, and I think something that bears kind of, I'm not going to go into great depth because I'm not an expert on this, but like the geologic timescale and its construction is a historic. It has been cobbled together, not cobbled, I shouldn't say. That implies kind of haphazardly. It was done haphazardly, which it has not been. It has been constructed over time and then modified from before we had any kind of way to directly date rocks, right? And so you could only relatively date stratigraphic units. And the way that you could do that was by looking at their lithology, what kind of rocks they were, but very especially looking at the fossil content, often with index fossils, which tend to be marine invertebrates. That are like widely distributed, easily recognizable, and they will appear and then they disappear from the fossil record. And you can use that to track certain times. And that's still used to this day. For example, like the Barremian is the base is defined by the first appearance of the ammonite Spitidiscus. In the end is determined, I imagine that it used to be by the first appearance of the ammonite Parachaeosites, but now it's been correlated the end with a geomagnetic reversal. And what we're dealing with is a system that was originally built on index fossils that has been modified then with other data, things like magnetic reversals, and then kind of also having to deal with radio.
We lost Alex.
He'll join back in. It's fine. It'll
also
just
having
make
to
the
deal
edit annoying.
with radiometric dating. I'll stop there. I just wanted to finish the sentence for the sake of my brain. Well, anyway, as I was saying, we've got this system that is kind of built on successive layers of new types of information that started with fossils, and then we've got like geomagnetic data. Now we've got geochronologic data, and in part, you don't want to mess with it too much, because that makes working with historical records difficult in like older papers. Like, we wouldn't want to completely rename the Triassic, Jurassic, and Cretaceous, or like move them tremendously. And you'll see that the dates are revised. How the dates correspond to the names are revised more than like anything to do with the names themselves. So when I was a kid, right, the end of the Cretaceous was 65 million years, and now it's 66. And that's just been with more and more precise dating because we characterize the end of the Cretaceous based on the faunal transition and the impact, right? So it's most of the Phanerozoic where life happens. The transitions between different geologic units are related to some kind of biological transition or some kind of big Earth system transition. If you look back in like the Precambrian, then you've got like the Archean is just subdivided into four eras, and they're each like 400 million years. And it's just for convenience because there's nothing in the rock record to say like, here's a great transition point. And so I think, keeping there isn't a push to make a Middle Cretaceous, in part because there's no need, like James was saying, for it per se. You can talk about the Middle Cretaceous. I think there kind of is a need for it because people talk about the Middle Cretaceous a lot. and like the middle of it. And there is a lot of stuff happening in terrestrial ecosystems, maybe less so in marine invertebrates, which is where a lot of kind of the historical names come from.
Right.
But it would be useful to have something to define with a capital M mid Cretaceous. Cause like you'll see like capital L late Cretaceous is a proper noun. It is the defined late Cretaceous, which right now is from the Cenomanian up to the end of the Cretaceous. I think it would not be it might not satisfy people's conceptions of the Middle Cretaceous, but I think it would be a fine bookkeeping maneuver to just, there are 12 ages in the Cretaceous. Those ages are defined typically by like biotic turnovers and things like that. We could just take then the next big stage, which is epochs, which is what early and late Cretaceous are. They're both epochs, and just make 3 epochs of 4 ages each. And like, it probably wouldn't satisfy some people who have an idea of what the mid Cretaceous is, but it would make it a bit easier to talk about.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I see that point, but it would be a weird definition, I think, as it's usually used, to do Aptian, Albian, Cenomanian, and Turonian.
Yeah,
I think it
because
should.
I think what people, I'm sorry.
I was going to say I think it should just be the Cenomanian.
Well, right, and I mean, but the problem is there's a name for that, which is the Cenomanian. Right. I think the conception is often it's like the Cenomanian through like the Coniacian would be the middle Cretaceous,
which that would be silly,
and maybe part of the Albian, but like at least in terms of what we can see in terrestrial faunas that I'm more familiar with, like from the Berriasian to the Albian, you generally do kind of have the same kind of like fauna in terrestrial ecosystems, and then it changes very suddenly, it seems, in the Cenomanian. And then we don't have a good like rock record from the Turonian through the Santonian. Like the terrestrial rock record really picks up basically in the early Campanian.
Yeah.
I know a lot of the Western Interior Seaway is Santonian, so we have a lot of marine. We don't have a lot of terrestrial. But like to my guess, probably by the time you're in the Turonian, you're basically getting like the components of major ecosystems like that you would see in the Campanian, but more primitive versions of them.
And
it's not perfect, but yeah, there's not a good. It's difficult to say what you would want to make your Middle Cretaceous, but I don't think that we don't need. I'm not saying we shouldn't have one, but I think that's probably why we don't have one.
Yeah,
it's also interesting in terms of just like a terrestrial fauna thing, because it's probably the only part of the Cretaceous where the Gondwanan record is better than the Laurasian.
Laurasian one,
which is makes it hard to do like compare. It's like, oh, what is the comparative? What's happening? We have like decent. It's improving. It's not as bad as it used to be from like Asia and North America. The pictures becoming clearer, but it is like if you like the fossil record of the Cretaceous of like Argentina, it's like some stuff, everything, and then like a few things in the Maastrichtian. In what we would consider the Middle Cretaceous. Something's happening. Something cool.
But hopefully that's given some insight into
periods,
into what's happening with the Middle Cretaceous.
Can be as long as someone said they were 200 years. Like the Silurian, right, is like 20 million years. I think it's I think it is like a fourth the length of the Cretaceous.
Right.
It's
the Cretaceous is like longer. Is it longer then, or almost as long as the Cenozoic? It's longer.
Oh, it's longer.
It's right. The KT impact is closer to now than the KT impact was to the beginning of the Cretaceous.
Yeah, it's the longest period
by a lot.
I think it's the longest period in the Phanerozoic.
Yes, it is. It is the longest geological period of the Phanerozoic. It's 77 million years long.
Hot dog.
So actually, like, not only is the KT impact closer to the present than it is to the beginning of the Cretaceous, the KT impact is closer to the present than the Cretaceous is so long that like if you go back to like the middle Campanian, like Dinosaur Park Formation, that's still more recent than the length of the Cretaceous period itself is. Like you can go pretty far back into the Cretaceous and you're still within the time span that is the Cretaceous.
Yeah.
Which is...
It's like driving through Texas.
It's right. It's the Texas of the geologic periods.
Except infinitely more fun than driving through Texas.
Oh, yeah. What if you play Sing 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 the entire time you're going through the Cretaceous?
Hell yeah, brother.
That sounds quite silly, is what I would say.
That was a word that you could possibly use to describe that experience.
But thank you for that question, Ryan Wants to Die.
Yes.
I think hopefully people got something out of that. Our next question comes to us from Insert Nickname, who asks, if you were to find a more primitive late surviving member of a family or clade in your area of research, would that give more questions or more answers? And we can kind of succinctly answer this one. James, did you want to take it?
Yes. Which is that you'll get more answers. You'll always get more answers. There's maybe one like special case in which you don't, which is that you've got a late surviving member of an early diverging group from the group that you're studying, and its evolution modifies it so much that it doesn't really, it's not really representative of anything anymore. And you're always going to deal with that a little bit, but this is an issue that we've dealt with, like in the modern day, a little bit with cyclostomes, like lamprey and hagfish.
Yeah,
where there was a lot of debate about whether hagfish are even vertebrates, like that they may fall outside of that clade as defined, which is related to whether they and lamprey are forming a group or not, and whether either of these are really good models for understanding what the earliest vertebrates would be like. And the answer is, like, it does seem that they're monophyletic, and they are. Lamprey and hagfish are both vertebrates, and there are ways in which they're representative, but there are a lot of ways that they're not. But in most cases, if you get a new combination of characters from a more primitive member of a group, you're breaking up a very long branch. And that can help a lot. Like, you can just think of it as you're sampling this new character combination. And so you're going to resolve, to some degree, everything downstream of that, because now you can polarize what order the characters changed in. And so we often deal with situations where you have like this kind of well-sampled region of a tree, and then you've got a super long branch connecting it to its closest relatives. And that can mean that the interrelationships of the things within that group are not so certain, because we don't have good polarization of how the characters changed in what sequence, because you'll hit a node where like all of these characters change at the same time. And it's not that they're actually all changing at the same time. It's that we haven't sampled the transformation. Like, we haven't actually sampled the transition. So it looks sudden, even though it's not. And when you get more data on these different combinations, you basically invariably improve your phylogenetic analyses. The only question it would raise maybe is like, what is it doing there? But I don't think that's even that big a question, because like we have platypus now. So, and they diverged from other mammals in like the middle Jurassic. So, things can survive for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And are
everybody satisfied with that? Yes. Or would anybody like to add anything?
Well, I can add a little asterisk on this, because while my research colleagues might have come to a nice consensus, I have one that's similar but slightly fossil prep tuned, in that it would also very much give me more answers, because honestly, I could ask this hypothetical late surviving fossil preparator why they decided to do all of the things that I am now undoing in the modern day. I want answers, and I am fed up with cursing the names of people who I do not know and that I cannot do to their face.
You want to have the name
Ether, Scott. The name is it's Ether.
I mean, like, guys, remember in the Iguanodon episode where they were just like, oh, yeah, we filled it with tar and asbestos? Or
like,
no, it was arsenic and stuff. And it was like, why'd you do that?
Yeah. Just fill it with gelatin and make it poison.
Yeah.
Seemed the right thing to do.
Wild. Oh, my God.
That's a good answer, Scott.
Thank you.
This exhibit is donated by Vanderbilt Tar. They said fill it up with tar.
Our next question comes to us from Regalius, who asks, could the entire crew combined beat a Suchomimus in an arm wrestling competition?
No.
And I wanted to say, when I was considering this, the Suchomimus in this instance is not angry. It's helpful. It is knowingly participating in this contest, not trying to cause us undue harm or eat us. It's just a regular old arm wrestling competition. And I think, and maybe it has to get put in a special harness so that its arm can be on a table and our arm can be on a table in a way that we can all participate in this. And I think if we all 5 got a hand on it, I think we might have a chance, but I think it would still be a hard competition. It's got big arms.
I have a clarifying question for the person in this YouTube channel who recently, if I can say this, wrote a paper on theropod arms.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we'd die. We're all going to die.
Well, no, my question was, could they physiologically arm wrestle? Can that motion happen?
Yeah, that's like one of the only things they can do.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, they can do it, and Suchomimus's arms are enormous and the claws are large, and we would die.
Well, okay, hypothetically, it's not using its claws.
We've got to get the little for
they're
cats.
they're attached to its fingers.
Well, I mean,
We've wrapped it in box in like
it's
tape.
got a boxing glove.
I see. Okay, it's going
It's
to
not trying to kill us.
Its
We're
head
just
is
trying
like
to
7
finish.
feet long.
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know about this.
I don't think we could pull it off, frankly.
You don't think so?
I think all 5 of us.
What
I
if
think
it's an ankylosaur, Alex?
I think each of
You
us.
beat me to it.
I think each of us could,
In an arm
with
wrestle?
full exertion of our bodies, lift 200 pounds
With
minimum.
one arm?
No, well, I don't think we have to arm wrestle with one arm.
No, Dalton, are you saying that each one of us can lift only 2? Dalton, I could lift way more than 200 pounds.
Well, no, I'm just trying to be conservative of minimum 200 pounds. That's 1,000 pounds of force we could generate against this. I don't think Suchomimus can bench 1,000 with one arm.
Wait, but we get to use both of our arms?
Well, we get to use our whole bodies because we're arm wrestling a Suchomimus.
No. That's not an arm
No.
wrestle. Elbows on the table.
Theoretically, though, right? We can't all 5 put our hands on the same table. So what I'm imagining
But
is
the
a
phrasing
robot
of
arm
question
with a lever we can all pull like an oar.
I think that's cheating. I don't think that counts.
a lever? No, that's
Well, no
mechanical
lever, no
advantage.
mechanical advantage from it. Just direct transfer of force. What we can generate to what it's going to output.
But because that is the question: is everyone combined? And I think the only way for that to work if there's some kind of mechanism, like we have a robot Suchomimus arm that we collectively operate somehow.
It just collects. We each generate an arm wrestle force, and it puts all of them together. Or we all fuse like in Dragon Ball or something into one entity,
like in Dragon Ball.
They're gonna get so mad at us for that or something not being part of the show.
They fuse in Dragon Ball.
I don't know.
I think it's in Dragon Ball. I think it's in Dragon Ball Z. They feel.
Oh, I don't care about the distinction.
I watch good shows for adults. I mean, this is it's a good question because it engenders conversation. But I don't think we could do it.
I'm also curious if or how many of our arms would break in the process of this.
Scott's the only one left standing.
Yeah,
superior arms.
I mean, I think
I'm the only one.
All of
Y'all
us
were dead
breaking
weight.
inside
I
of him.
can arm wrestle a Suchomimus.
Does anyone else have any final thoughts on the Suchomimus arm wrestle? Alex, you say no.
I think we
maybe.
are. I think we're getting out of that arm wrestle and one just dangling, all the tendons gone.
I'm not so sure because also Dalton, actually, your explanation trying to sell us on the fact that we could probably do it is making me actually think less that we could because it's the thing of lift it. I don't know how much I can push this way.
No, I had that same thought.
Yeah.
I don't think I can lift as much as or do this with as much force as I can lift.
I know I can't. I know I can't.
Well, that's
so.
Yeah, that's the ugh.
So I'm not so sure. I think I might go with the croc on this one.
I might be revising.
I think the Suchomimus is going to win.
I like how Dalton's just.
I'm pretending to arm wrestle. I mean, admittedly, it's not something I'm particularly good at. I'm a weak man.
He wrestles with his heart.
With the heart.
He's a lover, not a fighter.
Okay, I'm revising to still maybe, but on the side of no.
Okay.
Amelia, did you give your thoughts?
It's mostly no, just because like that is like the one thing they can do with any power with their arms is grab fish, which is the same motion. So they're probably pretty good at it.
Ooh, that's a good.
It's a compelling
It takes
point.
like an insane amount of core strength to keep a fish like 3 times your weight in a boat with you with thumbs.
It's a pain in the ass to keep a panfish like still trying to get a hook out.
Right.
Like I can't.
I'm sorry, a third
Now
your weight, not
imagine
3
it.
times your weight.
I was
Yeah,
about
yeah,
to say,
well-
Alex, you're one hell of a fisherman.
Big
there.
game.
No, small fish, little fish, still hard.
Alex has only ever caught bluefin.
Or like
You're
I don't know,
hard.
as someone who's watched the entirety of River Monsters, like fish are very strong and very persistent with their wiggling and stuff, and like it takes a lot like to hold them, to catch them and then hold them. And assuming that's what Suchomimus was doing.
To have and to hold in sickness and
Yeah.
health.
In fishness and
Yeah.
in health.
This is also, if anything, what this is making me think is that if theropods could arm wrestle, do we have any evidence that they didn't? Because
Ooh,
I think
good.
that this would be a wonderful way for them to this is some ceremonial ritualistic combat right here.
Just-
Right. Why bite your face
That's
when you could do
why
an arm
T-Rex
wrestling
kept their arms. They didn't
Yeah.
become fully vestigial. Just
that
two
why
T-Rex
dinosaurs went
walk up to
extinct?
each other.
Because it was the least impressive form of physical combat ever invented.
well, there was
Was a
also
female T-Rex looking like, I don't know about that.
This is stupid.
Hey, if you're a bad writer, it's a great way to demonstrate your character is strong.
Oh wow.
Oh, right. Yeah, I forgot that's how you demonstrate that.
They go into
movie.
a bar, and for some reason, country hayseeds are doing arm wrestles.
There
All
was an
I
episode of
remember-
Bones.
I'm sorry, you go ahead, Dalton.
Where they Bones and one of her interns were writing a paper about if a T-Rex could beat a human in an arm wrestling match, and so they had the intern wearing like a backpack that had like his arm was in like an exosuit, not like Iron Man, but like like the kind of really chintzy looking ones the military's made, where it's
Yeah.
just like straps with like
Yeah.
rods, and it was like a cast T-Rex arm was the rods. And then it had a motor in the back to simulate like the force. And I remember they were going to do an arm wrestle match. And then I think
What is that show about?
crimes and solving crimes. And then a crime happens and interrupts the rest. They don't actually get to do the arm wrestle.
That's a disappointment.
Sad.
That's very sad.
We should remake this. The Skeleton Crew should remake this.
We're remaking Bones.
We'll
Who's
just
the
call it
woman with the
Fossils.
wide face? I'd like to be her character.
She's Bones.
Okay, I'll be Bones.
Does she have a wide face?
Scott
Is this
knew
a thing?
immediately who I was talking about.
Hang on. I gotta see. It's Zooey Deschanel's sister. Yeah, she does have a wide face.
All right, it's not a judge. I'm not passing judgment. It's
No,
just
it's
an
just I
observation.
just had never thought about it. But yes, yeah, her face is wide. So anyway, that was a fun question.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. It was a thinker. And our next one comes to us from Kiyoki Odoka, who asks that given that fossils vary in fragility and are often destroyed in transit, do you sometimes think of what was lost in some cases? I mention this because of an ongoing debate within sauropod circles online of one Bruhathkaiosaurus / Fangorn and other fragmentary fossils lost to time or space. Do you wish you could yell at these people, or do you think it's just part of like fossil prep even now? And Scott, you've put together quite a response to this, so I think take it away.
Yes, indeed. So I'll start off by saying you might be tipped off by one of my previous answers that we do yell at these people, even if they're not here to hear it. There was a lot of cursing previous preparators that happens in prep work. But I would actually slightly not take issue with, but the kind of push back against part of your question, which is I wouldn't actually say that fossils are like often destroyed in transit. It's generally something that happens pretty rarely. Most fossils that most fossils do indeed get to where they're going, and even like in the history of paleontology back before we had modern technology, a lot of the notable lost specimens were either destroyed by situations that were outside the scope of like better packing methods and stuff, like Spinosaurus or
the ship that sank.
the two Corythosaurus that sank to the bottom of the Atlantic and stuff like that. And I'll fully admit I'm not actually super familiar with the history of Brachiosaurus here, besides the fact that it's one of my favorite dinosaurs to say. It has a very, very stately sounding name, and I think it just really fits for the animal. But yeah. So to get to kind of the meat of your question, that I will, at least what I'm interpreting as the meat of your question, which is this a part of fossil prep even now? The answer is yes. Not saying that we are like destroying fossils all the time or anything, but basically the way it was described to me a while ago is we need to treat fossil prep as an extension of the taphonomic process. That it is just a part of the taphonomic process, which does that. Sorry, it's still some mucus from the lingering bullshit. That it is just a part of the taphonomic process that we are lucky enough to be able to record so we can know exactly what happened. And when I say the taphonomic process, that is what we like to call the science of death and destruction. It's what happens to an animal after it dies and before it is being researched. So it's deformation in the sediment, it's through geologic processes, it's scavenging, it's things eroding out and being turned to dust before they've even been found, all of these sort of things. And definitely includes things that are done to the fossil with air scribes and aerobrators and chemical weathering and stuff like that we do in the prep lab. This is why it is very important for us as fossil preparators to keep very, very good logs of what we're doing. Every time you put tool to specimen, whether that is a physical tool like an air scribe or a pin vise or an aerobrator or something, or a chemical tool like an acid or even a solvent, you have the possibility of damaging some part of that specimen to the point where that part is unusable for future research. It could be as small as, we're looking for chemical traces of something on this. You use acetone on it. The thing that we're looking for to determine something about this fossil is soluble in acetone. We can't look at that anymore. It could be like we're looking for microwear on these very soft teeth. You used an aerobrator. It kind of muddied the signal of the microwear on these teeth, so we can't get a good signal of to what this animal was actually eating. So this is why you check with the researcher as much as you can about what the goal is of what you're working on, and you try to future-proof as much as possible, which is doing the least amount of prep that you can get away with, because the best thing that you can do to something is not have the possibility of damaging it. That's why it has become more and more commonplace for to use CT scanning as often as possible with specimens, because it is the least invasive of all of these options. So yeah, I hope that kind of answered your question, even if it wasn't specifically about Brachiosaurus. But yeah.
Let's hear from Black Spectral Pig, who asks us what words knocked the crew out of their respective spelling bees. And this, I tried to do some thinking, because I remember, I think it may have been 5th grade, it may have been 6th grade. I was in a spelling bee.
Huh? Really?
Yes, there was like it was like a weird regional one. They came to our school, and I remember doing like a standing and speaking spelling bee in the cafeteria. And I think I was in like the top 10 or 20 students. There was some cutoff, and I made the top X amount of students from this thing. And then I went to like a regional competition, and we went to like a high school a couple towns over. But and then there was like hundreds of kids, and before you did the actual stand up and spell in front of the room thing, there was like a qualifying written spelling bee portion, and I did not qualify from that. And it was a lot of words, so I don't know exactly which one got me out. I don't remember. I won't claim to be the world's best at spelling. I'm not horrible at it. I'm not tremendous at it. And I am basically incapable of spelling the word thorough on the first try.
I think we've all got a word like that.
Mine is guarantee.
I was about to say mine is guarantee.
But I've never been in a spelling bee, so it did not knock me out by definition. But that is the single word that I find the hardest to spell when I'm typing it. I don't know why.
Well, given our text chats, I imagine Alex wasn't even asked to compete. So,
that's mostly laziness and speed. My spelling's fine. I usually struggle with things that have a lot of vowels in succession. Like my brain will just switch U's and O's even without me meaning to do it. Especially when I'm typing, and then I gotta go, fuck. I never competed in a spelling bee though. I don't even have memory of there being spelling bees at my school. We were too stupid.
Yeah, I kind of thought they were only a thing in movies for a while, and then like I've actually now heard about people being in them, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah, I also don't think we ever did like a spelling bee that was more formal than like a little class one. So I don't even remember.
Amelia?
Yeah, we never had them, so I never did one. I've always been pretty good at spelling. I'm trying to think I know there's a word that trips me up typing, but I can't. It's an EI one, ironically, and it might just be like receive. Like sometimes, but I don't think it is. I think it's a little bit longer, but it's one of those where there's like a CEI or whatever that I always just like screw up and it autocorrects for me. I don't remember. It's the same one every time. I don't remember what it is. But when I'm intentionally spelling things, I have always been pretty good at it.
As opposed to
you kind of have to be
unintentional.
learning German. Huh? Yeah.
Learning
Learning German, you get good at remembering which letters need to go in the right spot because the words have a lot of letters. And English is not hard after that.
I've often had trouble also with like final vowels like ER versus OR versus like for some words like advisor, where like I also know there are sometimes different spellings that have different like formal meanings. Like this is not one, but capital versus capital, like the capital in terms of money being AL and capital like a political capital being OL. Versions of that where it's something R. I often like have to look up like, is this the correct usage of that spelling, or are these interchangeable, or is only one of them acceptable? But they're so often misspelled that spell check doesn't recognize it, which is like a great category. The more complicated the word, usually the better I am at spelling it, which is always fun.
Well, I feel like long, complex ones are the ones like you actively kind of set to.
Yeah.
Where you're like, you're like actively remembering them, and it's like it's words that are like 6-7 letters long, and they're like repeats.
Yeah,
is where I'll be like, I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Who knows?
That's a fun one. That's a good question. Thank you, Black Spectral Pig.
Literally nothing I've never thought about. So that I guess that is a good question.
It is.
Yeah.
You gave me something I've never thought about.
Indeed. And then our last question.
Oh, really?
Comes to us. Yes. Comes to us from Dinodom, who asks, what are the crew's favorite pet stories? And I wrote, gotta think on it. And I did think on it. And I've had pets for a very, very long time. And so If I've had more time to think about it, I might even have changed the answer. But what comes to mind right now is that when I first got Al, my cat, the second day that I had him, he was still pretty shy after getting him home from the shelter. And I went in to go to work. I'm trying to remember actually how this even happened. I think I went in to go to work and I came back home at lunch to check on him and I could not find him. And I was freaking out. And I was like, I know he's hiding somewhere in here. I'm sure he's hiding in the apartment somewhere because cats will do that, especially when they're in a new place. And I'm like, and I'm sure he's found his way into somewhere that it's going to be hard to find him, but I'm going to try and find him. And I was freaking out that he was lost. And I was mostly freaking out because at that apartment that I was in, my closet, one of the closets in like the main hallway, it was full of stuff, but on the ground level of the closet, on the back wall, there was like a panel. And if you opened the panel, it just opened into the wall. And I was on like the third story, and it was just like the interior walls of a humongous apartment complex. And in my mind, I was like, crap, he went into the closet, he found his way in there, and then went through that hatch, and now he's inside the interior of the building, and I'm never going to find him. And he's just gone for good. And that was what was going through my mind. So I like left out, I went to the store and got like canned tuna and left that out for him because I had to go back to campus for some reason. And I was freaking out the whole time. And then I came home and I tore apart the whole apartment. I tore like every drawer, everything I opened. And I went through the kitchen. And finally, I was like at my wit's end. I had opened everything that I was like conceivably, spatially the animal could fit in and could not find him. And then I opened up, there was like kind of like a silverware drawer, but just longer, but it was like this thin. But he had somehow gone underneath and then it didn't have a back. So he had crawled from like the under sink area up into this silverware drawer. And it was just kind of like tucked in very flat. And so I opened the drawer and all of the kitchen item, like all of the stuff that was in it was scattered to the edges. And he was just kind of in there sideways and really flat. And I was like, how did you do this? But I was very relieved that he was there.
I can imagine.
He's not a small cat either.
No, he was a little smaller when I got him. And he was definitely...
What are you, an Italian mother?
He hadn't cultivated all the mass that he had, but not all of his mass is chumbus. Some of it is just large size.
Yeah, that's fair.
But he was smaller when I got him.
I mean, a lot of it seems to be chumbus, also, though.
Mm-hmm.
He's a well-nourished cat.
There's a not insubstantial amount of chumbus, but he's only a 6 on the overweight scale, which I will mind you is normal weight is 5.
Okay.
Underweight, it goes from like 0, like 1 is severely underweight to like 10 is like, oh lord, he coming, huge cat. 5 is optimum, and Al's on a 6.
Is this an American or European scale of cat fatness?
Where does Garfield lay? Well, I have a fun one. So my family's previous dog, his name was Blue. He was an Airedale Terrier, and he was a very, very smart dog. And I know that a lot of people say that their dogs are smart. And he did some very stupid things. But this was the only time I've ever seen a dog by itself come up with and then execute a trap to get food. It was wonderful. So this was during the summer. I was home from school, watching some TV in the morning. My dad was getting ready to go to work and was making a sandwich up on our family's kitchen island. He's putting all this stuff together, and Blue is being a dog and sitting next to him and begging and like whining quietly. And my dad looks over at him. He's like, "Blue, no, not now." And so Blue just kind of sits there for a second, and then he gets up and just kind of like keeps looking at my dad, walks to like the other side of the kitchen island, like turns around, looks back at him, looks at this like faux potted plant that we had, looks over at him again, and then just knocks the plant over. And my dad just goes, "God damn it, dog!" And then like goes over to clean it up. My dog goes around the kitchen table there, peers around the side of it, sees that my dad is down on his hands and knees cleaning this plant up, prances over to the island, pops his front paws up there, eats every scrap of food that is on that kitchen island. And I'm just like, I watched this whole thing unfold, and then my dad cleans it up, turns back around, everything's gone. He's like, "What the hell?"
I don't know how to tell you this, Scott. I think that was a person.
So we once. Oh well, sorry.
Wait. Yeah. I have just a last little bit of it. That So my dad like yells at the dog and then looks over and sees that I watched the whole thing. He's like, "You didn't stop him?" I was like, he put so much effort into that. I was going to have this play out. I needed to see how this worked. And then he was very mad with that because he had to leave like right away. He didn't have a lunch that day, and he was so pissed. Oh man, it's one of my favorite stories about that dog. Man, I never saw him do it again, but like that was the smartest thing I've seen a dog do.
It was just he evolved. That's how people used to think evolution worked. Is that there would be a need for something and then you'd acquire it.
His hunger was so profound. It like
he made Lamarck
for
right.
a second. It like dragged him into consciousness, and then he's like,
the single 25-watt light bulb above his head sputtered to life, and he's like, "Oh, I know what to do.
I can be deceitful."
Like the concept of a self began to form, and then he had the sandwich. He's like.
Listen,
And like half a block
sandwich
of
like
Costco
that.
cheddar cheese. Like,
That's great.
We once had a very smart dog also. And this dog, so this was a border collie. These dogs are pretty smart. We had border collies. Well, we had a border collie when I was born. And my parents got her very, very shortly before I was born. The joke is that was the training round to like learn how to attend to a small human being. Border collie puppies, by the way, demons, demons. My parents tell a story. I don't think I was even born yet. I think my mom was still pregnant with me. But the puppy got into a pack of printer toner and was completely. This was a black and white dog that was completely black, leaving little footprints everywhere.
That's very cute.
She would just cough, and like a cloud of black toner would come out of her.
That kicks ass.
She was the sweetest dog ever, though. She like when she grew up, she calmed down a lot, which is rare for a border collie. She was like pretty like energetic, but kind of understood how to know when the vibe is like, we're not going to do anything right now. Like if you took her outside and threw the ball, she'd play forever. But if you were like, all right, we got to go inside, she was like, okay. Like it was very, very good. She wound up dying when I was, I think 15. And then the following summer we rescued a border collie from a border collie rescue thing that's like special for the breed because we'd really wanted another one. And this dog was so smart. It was frightening. There are two very brief stories I'll introduce, but the dog spoke English and kind of understood things. One of her favorite activities was to bark at lights reflected off the ceiling. Like if your watch reflected a light or something onto the ceiling, she'd bark at it. And once we had old pod lights that you could stick on something with a button in the middle that you could press to turn them on and off. And we were like, hey, this will be funny. And it was like bright. So we put it on the floor and turned it on. And there were like lights on the ceiling. And we'd like kind of move it around. And she was like going crazy, barking at it and everything. Then we were just like, okay, we're done with that now. Sorry. So we turned the light off. And she like barked at us for like a minute or so trying to get us to turn the light back on. And then we just saw her kind of look at us and look at the light and then look back at us like, all right, you. And then she turned the light on, which she had never actually like. She just somehow understood how to turn it on. She just pressed it directly on the button from a single time watching us do it.
Damn.
Because of her issues with barking at things constantly in the house, any light on the thing, we tried to train her out of barking constantly. And there's a There's a thing you can buy that's like supposed to be a high frequency thing they don't like. And they were like, just press this remote. And when she's like barking, when it's just like there's a light from the sun reflecting on the ceiling, she won't like the sound. And then like it'll quickly train her not to do it. So we did that the first time. She went around our kitchen systematically barking at every piece of technology we have because she seems to have understood that it had to be coming from an electronic. And so we pressed it once and she started barking at our microwave, and then we pressed it again and she was like, she relocated over to the fridge and then started barking at that. And then
She's
started
testing
like
the appliances
exactly.
systematically.
And after that, wasn't it? She started barking at like our DVD player we had like nearby for our TV. Like it was just like this every time. And then she couldn't figure it out and got like really distressed. We never used it again because we're like, this is too mean. Because she understood that like something was happening. It doesn't seem to have occurred to her that we might have been doing it, but we never felt like we felt like it was too mean.
Of course
to do
not.
it
You're
again
her
that.
family. Why
Well,
would
exactly.
you do that?
We wouldn't
to
do
her?
that to her. The last thing I'll say is that one morning my mom was playing hide and seek with my sister and apparently could not find her, like just actually couldn't find her, and went over
Oh,
to
you've
the
told
dog
me this story. I love
and just
this
like
one.
went like kind of just as joke offhandedly just said like, you know, Haley, where's my sister's name redacted here? And the dog just like looked at her and just kind of like just very calmly walked her over to where my sister was hiding, which is not particularly interesting, but this is, again, not something that she was ever trained to do or a common occurrence in the household. And so, like, the phrase, where is she, seems to have triggered in the dog after, like, a processing moment. She's asking me to go find her. Like, this is, you know what I mean? In a way that I've never had another dog that can do that when the person's hiding. Sometimes I'll have a dog, like, look at somebody if you say their name, but not like the dog hasn't seen where this person is and has to go look for them. I don't know. She was very smart. She was very fun. She died of lung cancer when she was very young, and we don't know. We don't know if she was exposed to something bad like early in life because we got her at a few years old. But I
Did
think
she
was
pick
like,
up a smoking habit?
She was a smoker. She'd been smoking a pack a day since she was 4. But I think she was only like 6 or 7 when she passed away. So we didn't have her for that long. But she was very fun. That's my story.
James.
Yes.
I can't believe you never asked the dog to find buried treasure, because that's, if there was any dog that would have been able to find pirates' treasure,
yeah,
would have been that dog.
It would have been. I missed an opportunity. Legend has it that Captain Kidd's treasure is buried on Long Island. I should have asked.
Is it really?
She probably
I didn't
knows.
know that.
I'm more interested in Captain Adults. His is just going to be full of toys.
I'm more interested in Captain Crunch.
He has stolen valor. He's actually lieutenant commander, actually.
Damn.
Can't believe
just when you thought that you could respect someone.
Amelia, do you have a pet story?
I've got a lot. I've been sitting here thinking, like, I've got a couple like short things. Like, one is I'm glad James brought up this sort of hide and seek activity, because I guess I didn't realize, like, the dog that we have now, for the boys who have met her will know this. She's not very smart. She's very sweet, but oh my god, not very smart. But the dog previous to her was a German Shepherd, and she was wonderful and also like wicked smart. And one of the things, like one of the games I would play with her is hide and seek, like with toys. Like I would tell her to wait. She would wait in one half of the house. I'd go hide it in the back of the house, and I'd say, okay, go find it. She'd go find it. Like, and she also was able to, like, she knew people by name also in the house. So, like, which was, like, weaponized by my parents to wake us up in the morning, basically. Like, go get so-and-so, and she'd burst into our room and wake us up. But knew the difference between me and my brother. But yeah, she was fantastic. And I'm sure there's other stories with her that I'm forgetting, but she was wonderful. And with Miles, the cat we have now, he's done a couple of silly things. But like the cat that I currently have seems to be, for a cat, simultaneously pretty smart and one of the dumbest animals I've ever met. Because like he's at least part, if not full Siamese. I don't know. I adopted him. But so he's very chatty, but beyond that, he does seem to understand more words than any other cat I've ever had, like specific words that mean specific things he'll respond to differently. But then also, like, I don't know, one of my favorite things he's done recently was, like, we were playing, and his way of playing is I throw things in the air and he like runs after them, catches them, and runs away. And one time he was like running at top speed during just like wild hours. So he's just flying around, and I was like, all right, time to play. And I threw something, and he was flying, and then he jumped, but his back legs kept going. He just fully landed on his back, and then just, corrected and flew the other way. That was pretty good. The other one was same thing. We're like playing with something, and I had a little ball, and I said, "Oh, are you stupid?" And I threw it, and he said something because he vocalizes. And he said this cute little meow, and as he jumped to catch the ball, he hit his head right on the corner of the table. I'm like, oh God.
Sounds like he is.
Alex?
Oh, right. I have to answer this question. Pets. I don't know. There's so many. Almost all be about. We had some hamsters and guinea pigs when I was much younger, but I don't remember too much about them. Diamond and was one of the guinea pigs' names because it was white. Let's see. They were fun. No, but probably, I mean, it's got to be about my dog. Well, the family's dog. A lot of good ones. She's a herding dog. And we have a pool, so she'll freak out if anyone jumps in the pool because she thinks they're drowning. So she'll like run over to the edge, and then she'll like bark at you and like try to get you back. But the second you're in the pool, she hates swimming. She just is like, all right, you're on your own. But you can get her worked up where she'll like race around the pool. Well, not anymore. She's like 15 now, so she doesn't do a lot of that. But like, and a few years ago, she like leapt a corner, slipped, and just spun out into the pool. And like all dogs could swim, and she could swim, and like managed to get herself to the stairs. But I've never seen an animal look displeased. I think when I think of
in what way?
How her disposition.
No, it's right.
When I think of Elsa, I think there's a very cute, like my memory. The first two triggers in my memory are very cute puppy photo that we put on our stocking, and then just a Snapchat I received at 2:30 in the morning, like when I was in college and Dylan was home visiting. It's like 2:30 in the morning. It's in the kitchen. Dylan is filming himself. He is altered, and he's laughing hysterically. And he turns the camera down, and he is holding a Taco Bell Doritos Locos taco, and Elsa is just destroying it, and he is laughing so hard. He is cackling, and you can tell he's like a little conscious that it's 2 a.m. and he's home, so he's like trying not to be super loud about it. And this dog is just like slamming this dog.
Just housing.
Yeah. I gotta find it. Anyway, yeah. So that's those are some fun. Those are some silly pet stories.
Oh, that's some fun stories. A good time.
It is
telling them. And that was also our last question. So thank you, Dino Dom, and thank you to everyone who wrote in questions for September.
Thanks, Dom.
Thank you.
Indeed, and I think this is the time where I should thank patrons of the Skeleton Crew. Right?
Yes.
And patrons of the Skeleton Crew, I should remind you, are people who can ask questions in these videos. If you support us at Basilosaurus tier or higher, you can submit questions to our question channel, and then eventually we'll answer them in a video form, and we'll laugh a lot, hopefully. Today, I want to thank insert nickname Benjamin Seepser, Christopher Bellis Jones, Aaron Anderson, Adamolos, Blacklight Virus, Brett Booth, Black Spectral Pig, Camphibia, Chaotic Kaiju, Dino Dom, Kevin Preem, King Zashu, Life Finds a Way, Rusty HBK, Severed Moosehead Tavern, Super Shovel, The Wigster, Touch Connors, Wanderer, and Wheat for their support of the Skeleton Crew. Thank you to those most generous patrons, and thank you to all of our patrons. We look forward to seeing you next time on our next Q&A.
Yes.
Thank you for
Bye,
coming.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.